Hey, everybody. Welcome to Odd and Untold, the podcast where we talk about all things strange and spooky. And today is Halloween, and I have some very special guests for Halloween. The first one, if anyone who's been listening to the show for any length of time knows my friend Kristi, because I give her shout outs on a regular
Hi.
basis, and my new friend, Laurie. So, girls, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having us. Thanks.
Yeah, of course. I've been trying to get Kristi on the show for a while, and she's been resistant. I mean, she's been a fan since day one. So I really appreciate that. Kristi listens every week. She always gives me feedback. Laurie, I've been trying to pin down for a while. And the funny thing about Laurie is that I keep texting her, and every time I tried to get her on the show, it was like, oh, I'm working late tonight. Text me on Monday.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
And then I text on Monday, and she's like, oh, I'm up in the Catskills. Text me on Monday. And then I text her on Monday, and she's like, oh, I'm in Italy.
That was
It
true.
was all legit.
That was true.
And then I didn't text anymore because I was like, okay, the next one's gonna be like, I'm on Jupiter. Text me on Monday. So,
I had nowhere else to go, so I had to do it.
yeah. So then I was like, well, let me see if I can get both of you on, because Kristi's like, I don't really have a lot of stories, but Kristi and I have a lot of history. And she said, you have a lot of stories, Laurie. So I wanted to get you on. And I figured what better time of year for ghost stories than Halloween. And today is Halloween, not when we're recording this, but as this goes live, it'll be Halloween. So happy Halloween, everybody. And we're gonna have
Happy Halloween.
some cool stories today. So just some backstory. Kristi, you and I met, I think the first time in like 2006 at the Garibaldi Medici Museum. There was like an event going on there, and you had your ghost hunting group, and I was in my ghost hunting group. Very epic times. Let me just take some sips from my beer. So you were in a group called Staten Island Paranormal Society, correct?
Yes.
With Amy and Lisa, and were you in there, Laurie, too?
Yeah, temporarily.
Was,
Yeah.
Okay, because I don't know
And
if
my
I've
friend
ever met you.
Jonathan was there too. She was in early on.
Okay.
I was quiet.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, and then we had done a lot of events together over the years, and we were friends on Facebook, and we would comment on each other's things or like each other's stuff, and but we didn't really hang out. You know, we just would see each other at, again, a lot of the Snug Harbor events or Garibaldi Medici Museum. Say that 3 times fast. Or I forget where else we did together. I know it was a lot of Snug Harbor stuff.
Yeah. I think that was primarily it, really.
Yeah. Well, that was the only place that really let us do organized tours.
Yeah.
They allowed us to do it for free. They didn't pay
Right.
us. So I think one time they paid us, and it was minuscule. It was not a lot.
You're right. I think there was one.
There was one where they paid us, and they have kind of moved on. I know they still do paranormal stuff, but
Yeah.
from what I've heard, they're doing some real kind of sketchy stuff now where they've made up a lot of stories, and they're trying to like,
Really?
yeah, they're trying to like
That's
make it
that's
scarier.
unfortunate.
I know. And I mean, the stories that were there were cool as they were.
Yeah.
Nobody
Definitely.
really, yeah. But now, and this is what I've heard. I don't know, but
Yeah.
I've heard from people going there telling me stories, and I'm like, that's not true.
Yeah.
Like that, I've never heard that before. We used to run the tours there. So, but I know they have new leadership and new, so
Right, exactly.
whatever.
Yep.
But yeah, we kind of fell out of all that, and then COVID hit, and we just haven't really been doing the ghost hunting stuff anymore. But
Yep.
yeah, but we've known each other a long time, and we became friends a little over a year ago, just due to some convergence of bad personal stuff in our lives. And
Yes.
we started talking, and we became really good friends. And now you're probably texting me right now.
No. I'm
We
trying to be professional for you.
Oh, okay. I know we talk a lot, so that's cool, and we've become very good friends, and that's very cool. And again, Laurie, I don't know you, but I've heard very good things about you over the years. So yeah, thank you guys both for coming on. This is gonna be cool, and you guys are both very cool. So I'm really excited about this. So I know you both have some ghost stories. Kristi, you said yours aren't as numerous. So do you guys have a preference as to who goes first with the ghost stories?
I'll start because mine are, pretty short.
Okay.
She's got the good stuff.
Okay.
If they feel that way.
I do. You have a lot. Okay. And you're also a bit like sensitive. I'm normally not, so you definitely have more. Okay. So I'm trying to think. I guess my first one is really not that exciting, but it was definitely something that I can't explain. So odd. We'll go with the odd part of your
Okay.
um when I was a teenager, the house that my family lived in, we kind of used to joke that it was haunted. You know, we would hear things and you would see things out of the corner of your eye, but there was nothing definitive. Nobody ever saw like, you know, apparitions or anything like that or actual voices. It was just more like probably the house settling, but we just called it our ghost. And there was one particular day that I was home alone and I was sitting in my kitchen, and the way that the house was set up, my kitchen kind of overlooked a hallway and a stairwell. And I remember I was sitting at the kitchen table and something caught my eye, and I turned toward the hallway and I saw what looked almost like a cloud just kind of very, very slowly, just kind of like floating by. And I mean, if I had to give it a size, I would call it maybe a little bit bigger than like a football size, if I had to judge. And I remember it very clearly and don't know what it was. There was no noise associated with it, but it moved very slowly. And when it caught my eye, I almost was like in a trance. I couldn't take my eyes away from it. I wasn't afraid. I don't remember having a feeling. I wasn't even shocked, which you'd think you would be seeing that. And it just kind of slowly and steadily floated by. And as soon as it passed the other side of the wall and disappeared, it's like I snapped out of it. I was like, what the hell was that? You know, there was nobody home. So I had nobody to, witness it with me, but I immediately got up. I looked left and right in the hallway. There was nothing there. And I thought for sure I'm going crazy. So that it's not like a ghost thing, but I can't explain it. Never saw it again, never saw it since then.
So before you go on, what color was this mist?
It was white. I mean, it was unequivocally a cloud. It was a cloud. It wasn't like I couldn't even call it a mist. It was a cloud. I couldn't see through it. It was a white cloud, but it was misty like a cloud would be, but it wasn't a mist, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, definitely. And it was like the size of a football, and it just floated.
Just very weird. That doesn't belong in your house.
No. And did it like dissipate at all? Because like usually if there's like a puff of smoke, it'll slowly.
Nope. It just stayed solid, not solid, but stayed cloud-like and just continued until it was past the wall and I couldn't see anymore. But then when I got up to look, it wasn't there. So
did it like go through the wall?
No, because it was kind of in the hallway and I could kind of like see down my steps from there. So it just kind of like went in front of my steps, I guess.
Okay.
It was just very strange.
Yeah, and I mean people usually when they talk about seeing a mist or a cloud, I mean, and you do hear this a lot in, I mean, this in paranormal stories, but it'll tend to usually have some sort of shape to it, or sometimes it's like a dark mist. It's like a gray or a black. And people will then try to attach like demonic things to it. But yeah, it's interesting. It's just like a little puff of cloud that went through your house. Yeah, very strange. So yeah, we won't call it a ghost, but definitely odd.
Yes.
Strange. Okay, so I'm sorry I cut you off. You're going to go do another story.
No, that's fine. So that was my odd one, and then the other one, and I hope I remember it correctly, but it was the house that my parents currently live in now, and my grandfather, my mother's father, had a stroke. I'm going to say close to 10 years before this incident actually happened, and he lived with us in that basement. He didn't die in the house, but he died in the hospital, but he stayed with us until he ended up going in the hospital to pass away. So that basement was his space. And after he passed away, it was just kind of a rec room. And I used to exercise down there, and I would put on my video and I would do my workouts. And I was doing that one day, and I was still living at home because this was years ago. And my parents were out. I was the only person in the house, but I wasn't really thinking that. That just wasn't on my mind. So all of a sudden I heard somebody say, Chris, like calling me, like, Chris. And I just said, yeah, just assuming it was my dad. And then I realized, I was like, wait a minute, they're not home. So I thought, okay, maybe they came home, no big deal. So I heard it again. I heard Chris. And I said, yeah. And then I start walking up the stairs and I'm like, they are not home. I would have heard the door. And I absolutely heard it because again, it was twice, and that they said Chris. It wasn't a next door neighbor, the windows were not open. It's a basement, so I don't even open those windows because they would be ground level, so I don't open them anyway. And as I started walking upstairs, that's when I realized, like, wait a second, that was, there's nobody here. And then all of a sudden it dawned on me that the voice that I heard that I assumed was my dad actually sounded like my grandfather, who used to live in that room. And he would call me Chris. They all called me Chris. So I continued to go upstairs and just to make sure that there was nobody there. But the more I replayed it in my head, the more I realized, no, that sounded more like my grandfather than my dad. Like, there's no way, that I just wasn't thinking that because he was deceased,
Right,
I'm
right.
thinking my living father. But, as I said, playing it over and over again in my head, that was not my dad's voice. So I don't know what he was trying to get my attention for, but, if it was my
Just a hello.
grandfather, yeah, it could have just been a hello, It's also her grandfather because we're cousins.
Oh, yeah, right.
So, yeah, it's just weird, Can't explain it.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you heard it twice.
Yeah.
And again, I love that, like, I love stories like this where, like, it kind of slowly dawns on you that
Yeah.
there's something odd about it. Like, you hear
Mhm.
these stories a lot where, like, there's a knock at the door, or like, and you're not thinking ghost, you're like, oh, someone's
Right.
at the door, or someone, my dad's calling me, and you're like,
Yeah.
and then it, like, slowly dawns on you, like, wait, nobody's home. Like,
Yeah.
who called me? And again, that it happened twice. Again, once you can
Yeah.
almost just be like, all right, maybe like a trick of the mind, or yeah, something from outside that,
Mm-hmm.
because again, we've all had that where you hear something and you're like, what? And then
Yeah.
before you know it, like, you can't even remember really what you heard, like, it's
Yeah.
gone. So for it to happen twice is really interesting. And
Yeah.
but again, you do hear about this, like, where deceased loved ones, will call someone's name or say something,
Mm-hmm.
and that it was, Chris. It was like what everybody called, like,
Mm-hmm.
people who aren't familiar with you are going to say Kristi,
Right.
because that's what you go by. And then,
Right.
Chris is a more or less formal,
Right.
it's
Exactly.
a more familiar sort of term.
Mhm.
So yeah, very, very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Did you ever get any other feelings or anything else?
Well, I was just gonna say we had, and this could be chalked up to so many different things. Like, there could be, odors and smells and whatever can linger in any fabrics, and we know that. So I never thought of this as paranormal, but you never know. How, like, people just have scents, whether it's a perfume or a body wash or whatever, deodorant, but sometimes you associate those smells with a certain person.
Mhm.
So there was a smell that I associated with my grandfather, and every once in a while I would smell that. And again, yes, it could have been something that just got kicked up from a chair or the rug or whatever. But yeah, that happened. And I mean, years after he had passed, that still happened. And our grandmother also wore a very strong perfume. And Laurie has had it, I've had it, and my sister also, where we'll just be randomly somewhere. It's not like anywhere near where my grandmother had lived or anything. And you would smell, you go, "Oh, I smell grandma."
That
And
overwhelming
yeah,
smell.
and I know that happens to a lot of people, especially when it's a perfume, a specific perfume, that I don't even think they make her perfume anymore. And so that I've had as well. But again, that's not really an interesting story because that happens to everybody. But yeah, that's really the only things that I can think of.
But I think, like, an overwhelming smell is interesting at the very least. I mean, a lingering smell, you can kind of understand, just that
Yeah.
very faint, like, oh, that kind of smells like my grandfather. But
Yeah.
like, when you get that, like, overpowering smell, it makes you wonder, like, where did that come from? Because
Yeah.
it's so strong.
Mhm.
I had one time that, it just reminded me of this. Like, when I was in high school, I remember I came home from school one day, and I don't know if you remember the episode where John and I were talking about the Ouija board, and so there was some weird stuff going on. And I remember I came home one day and my bedroom just smelled of roses. Like,
Mm.
like when you buy a bouquet of roses, or you
Yeah.
walk into like a florist, and it's like a punch in the
Sweet.
face.
Yeah. Yeah.
My room smelled like that. And like, my window was closed. There was no flowers in the house, but the room just reeked of flower. And it wasn't an unpleasant smell, but it was just, and I went to my mother. I was like, did you buy flowers or put like an air
Yeah.
freshener in my room? Because it was just overpowering.
Right.
and it wasn't a faint scent. It was, again, it was like I walked into a florist. It was just
Yeah,
that
that's a very
strong.
strong, distinct smell.
Right. So I'm not saying it's paranormal or a ghost, but
Right.
it was weird. It was for a 17-year-old boy's room to
Yeah.
smell of anything pleasant, I guess. But uh, but to smell like flowers, it was just very weird. So
Yeah.
just reminded me of that. Cool. So any other stories before we toss it over?
Not that I can think of. That's really the main two that I could think of. Like I usually don't have things like that happen. We had little things. I don't know if you want to wait about, to talk about the ghost stuff, but ghost hunting days. But I had little things happen to me when we were doing investigations. Nothing major. Like I said, I'm not a sensitive person, and spirits don't like to contact me for some reason. But I'm very open to it, but they just don't want to. But I've had at the Garibaldi Mayuchi Museum, I did have something, and actually, I think there's audio or video of it. I have to ask my sister, but there was one investigation. You might have been there. It was
That's the
pretty
one I
early
had.
on. It was
I
an
had
early
something
one.
with Jen was there.
Yes.
Yeah.
And at one point, you hear me say, "I don't usually get freaked out, but I'm getting freaked out." And I asked a question. I think I said, "Is anybody else?" or something like that. And you heard a voice say, "I am," but it wasn't
Yes.
anybody's voice that we were with.
Oh,
And it
wow.
was a higher voice. And yes, we were with females, but like I have a deeper voice. Laurie's is a little bit higher, but I know Laurie's voice. And anybody that we were with, most of them were my family members anyway. Like I know their voices. This was no, and then when we listened back to it, everybody was like, "Who was that?" Because we all knew that's not our own voice. So that was the only one where, I mean, it was very clear what was said. Anything other than that, while we were ghost hunting, were just weird noises or whatnot. But
Yeah, you always get that. You always get the little knock, the little,
yeah,
something that you're like, kind of sounds like a voice, but maybe it's
exactly.
not.
But
And we
you
used to have
talk
like,
yourself out of it.
yeah. And I remember like we used to just have sounds that we would get, and it was just like, what the hell was that? And then you realize like, oh, that was Jimmy's stomach growling, or it's like we were hungry, and it's just, but it's it just sounds like crazy, and you're like, holy crap, what did we just catch? And
Yeah.
so yeah, we would always have to throw that stuff out, and unless it was like a distinct voice, and like, yeah, you guys, it was always your sister Amy and
Right.
Lisa, and
Lisa.
you guys all knew each other, so
Exactly.
and us too. Like we were a small group. It was usually 3 or 4 of us. So
Yeah.
if there was a voice and it was like, all right, that's not me, it's not any of you guys, like who was that?
Yeah.
For
sure.
So yeah, very cool. Did you have any other ghost hunting? Because again, a lot of people hear ghost hunting, they're like, oh, that's so cool, I want to come with you guys, and it's like, no, like
it's actually quite boring.
very boring, and nothing
Yeah.
ever happens, and it's
No.
not like you see on TV where it's like, what was that? Oh my god.
Yeah. No.
No, it's 10 hours of just,
Yeah.
come on, do something.
Right. Exactly.
And nothing ever happens. So
no. Yeah, we never had anything major. We had 1 or 2 EVPs that we had up on our website at the time, which I don't even remember I don't even think it exists anymore, but there was nothing, like no big class A, except for the one that I told you about, but at the Garibaldi Museum. But really, and even that, like, I'm not going to say that's a ghost. I don't know, but I just know it wasn't the voices of the 4 people we were with. But
do you still have that EVP?
Amy does. My sister does.
Oh, do you think you can get that from her?
For sure. Yeah.
Hi, Amy. Hi, Lisa. Hi, everybody else. Who am I forgetting?
I mean, she should, but
yeah. All right, yeah, if you can get that to me, that'd be awesome. I could maybe edit it in here.
Yeah.
If possible.
Okay.
Cool. So yeah, Laurie, I didn't know you were with them.
Yes.
Yeah, that's cool.
I mean, I probably went to 4 or 5 things. I did a lot of the tours with you guys.
At Snug?
Yeah, but I did the Garibaldi Mayuchi Museum. That's where, same day as that was, I was walking through the kitchen, well, what used to be the kitchen, and I felt like someone punched me in the chest, like in the sense that I lost my breath. And I said, like, I feel like someone walked through me, because it was just one of those, like I almost like jolted, like I felt again something go through me at the time, and that was it. I mean, yeah, I didn't see anything. I know we heard that So I feel like there was someone with us that, that day. But my biggest scare would probably have been, we were doing the matron's house in Snug Harbor, and Amy and I were getting ready. We had a security guard who was opening like an area that we weren't supposed to be going in. But he was new, and he's like, "Oh, did you ever see the basement?" We're like, "Oh no, that's good." And we were creeped out. And I'm talking to Amy, and I'm like, "Amy, there's a child here." And she's like, "What?" I was like, "I feel a child." And I was like, "Look at my arm." My arm was like, look, like when someone like pinches you and you get a mark, like a temporary mark.
Right.
I had like 3 or 4 like pinches on my arm. I said, "Amy, someone's doing something to me." And then we went down to the basement, and that's where the security guard told us that there was a child that was born who was, like disabled. So they locked him in the basement at night. And I really felt that he didn't want us to go down there. And then, I mean, even seeing the room, you were there, right?
Yeah, but I thought you were going to tell, finish that story, but don't forget, you also had something in building E, which we were not supposed to be in, but they did let us in that night. But that's when you ran out. Do you remember that one?
That's when something followed me home.
Yeah.
Yeah. That building E, I just was really, really overwhelmed. And I remember going home that day and not feeling easy, not feeling comfortable. And I was sitting in my bedroom, and my TV started going on and off, like really, really fast flashing. And I remember saying out loud, like, "Whoever you are, you have to go." And it just stopped.
But do you remember what happened in the building though? Because I know what happened from my point of view. It was scary.
I'm going to be honest, I must have blocked it out, because now I'm getting a little freaked out.
Well, what I remember about that is we kind of paired up. So I was with Laurie, and we were walking down. The building was technically condemned. We were really not supposed to be in there for safety reasons.
Again, security guards, new guys.
Yeah, exactly. He sees a bunch of cute girls, and
Oh
whatever.
yeah.
And I think my sister bribed him with brownies, actually. Not good brownies, like
No.
actual brownies. But so he rather let us in. So Laurie and I are walking down this hallway, and it was just creepy. Like, I don't get those vibes. So to me, it was just a creepy hallway.
I do remember that.
Yeah. And then Laurie didn't listen to the rules, and she walked off a little bit, and she made a left, I remember, into a room, and I couldn't see her anymore. And I was catching up to her. All of a sudden, she runs out, almost knocks me over, and she's like, "I gotta get out of here." And she ran out. I was like, "What just happened?" So then, of course, I got after her.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. And that was the night that something.
I brought something home. I
you.
went in that room, and I was just so uneasy. Like something was in there, something didn't want me there. And I could not get out of that room fast enough. It was.
You could say that.
No, and I remember now. Yes, as you're telling me, I vividly remember walking in. And you could see it was not a safe place for us to be. It was, it was like almost like a movie set. Like things were set up, like walls were hanging off, and
there were planks on the floor,
and there was nothing I saw. It was just something I felt, and again, it didn't want us there. And I remember even saying that when we got outside. I'm like, "No, I can't be in there. It doesn't want us in there." Like, I don't know what it was, but it wasn't happy. And then I went home, because we always try to like say a prayer to Hail Mary,
closing.
Like, when we left, to try to cleanse us. And maybe that day I didn't do it. I don't know, but I got home, and I knew whatever was there was with me at that moment. And it just made my TV go crazy. And then I told it to go, and I guess I was lucky, because the TV just stopped. And
I know Jason and I have spoken about this. I don't know how much I believe that things really follow you home. I should knock on wood and not really actually say that, but you definitely, I think you're sensitive to energy, and maybe it was like some sort of energy that was with you, because it didn't last.
No,
once you told it to go, that was it. So it's not like something was quote unquote haunting you, or
no. It was. I came home uneasy. Again, just sitting on my bed while my TV was flashing. But I have to be honest, that I've had stuff happen after that with stuff flashing, and we'll get into that after. Again, maybe me and energy, things can feed through me. I don't know. But so I have a lot of weird stories like that.
Yeah. Which one was Building E? Because I don't remember that one.
because nobody was allowed in it. I think we were the last ones, and that had to be 2005 or 6.
I think they
you
used
know?
like the outside of it. They don't.
Yeah, it was. I'm not 100% sure. I
It's one
think
of
it
those-
was across from Building K, the matron's house. I think it was across the little road from there.
Oh, okay. All right.
One
And
of
the
those-
the
one of those
matron's house
buildings.
is freaky. And I did
Yeah.
a whole episode on this podcast about the matron's house and our experiences there. And it's
Yeah,
Yeah.
again, we're pretty skeptical. We're all pretty like
yeah,
pragmatic and down to earth, and
Yes.
we're not like, oh, everything's haunted. Like you
No,
said earlier,
no.
like, ghost hunting is boring. Like nothing ever
Yeah.
happens.
Like I remember everyone was like, "Oh, the music hall, it's so haunted." And we went walking through there, and I was like, "There's nothing here." Like
Yeah.
I felt nothing. I felt calm. I didn't. It was like my house. Like
and just
Yeah,
disclaimer: she's not saying she's a psychic or
No,
anything, but
no.
she definitely has some sort of sensitivity. Maybe you just never fine-tuned it. I don't know,
Developed
but
it.
yeah, but there's definitely something with you that you feel a lot more than anybody else does in our family.
but yeah, matron's house is creepy. Like stuff
Yeah.
happens there. Governor's house is creepy.
Yeah,
We've had some weird stuff happen there. So Snug Harbor is just it's a shame that I feel like this new leadership took over and they're much
know.
less into like letting, because yeah, like we had the same experience with different security guards there where they're just like, oh, you
Yeah.
guys want to go in the catacombs underneath,
right.
or
Yeah,
tunnels underneath the buildings, or they'd be like, here's the key, just lock up when you're done.
Exactly.
Oh, okay, this is like, and so maybe there's a reason why they don't let us do it
yeah.
anymore. But you did have the security guards who go off and let us just be. And we were always respectful. We didn't damage any
course,
property
yeah.
or anything. But yeah, they would take us into places that were usually closed off. And yeah, I remember I don't know if it was during the tour or like preparing for one of the tours. And I don't know if you guys were with us, but they took us into the tunnels underneath, and it was just like something
No.
out of a horror movie. It was all like there was like running water on the ground,
Wow.
and it was just like this dank tunnel. Everything was rusty, and like just like the single light bulb, the yellow light
Wow.
bulb, and it was just like really creepy. But yeah,
The only like cellar type underground area that I remember would be under the matron's house, but I don't remember any
there was
other.
other tunnels, but
I mean, maybe I just wasn't
well,
there that day.
I think
but
that
don't
day was
know.
just a creepy day. It was very
Yeah.
uneasy. Well, I was uneasy. I wanted to see what was down there, and you could see tunnels, but I didn't want to go any
So
further.
like, where did you go? Like under what buildings?
And I
were
think
you-
it goes through the whole complex.
it was actually we actually entered. It was that road kind of between the matron's house and like right across the street is like the museum and the
Yeah.
reception hall, and they just took us there. There was like a sewer. They just like unlocked and lifted the
That's
sewer. We like
crazy.
crawled down.
Wow.
That's
think-
awesome.
I think maybe Brian was with us, Brian Cano. I forget who else. It wasn't many of us, but I
Yeah.
believe Brian and Chris were with
Yeah.
us. I'm
Wow.
Maybe they had the real brownies.
scared.
Yeah.
What's that?
He gave them the real brownies. The guy's like, you can go wherever you want.
But yeah, they let us down there, and we walked for a bit,
Wow.
but it was just, and it's creepy, but it was just, how much can you do down there? You're kind of
Yeah,
hunched
exactly.
over, and it's your feet are getting wet, and
Yeah.
it's dark and dank, and it smelled bad, and it's like, all right, this is basically a sewer. Like,
Yeah.
cool, but we're done. Like, we can go back
Yeah.
upstairs now. But yeah, matron's house is awesome, and
Yes.
I mean, we had a lot of fun doing those tours. It was good times. I do miss them, but
I do too. We always say that we want to revamp Staten Island Paranormal Society and kind of do stuff again, but like, it's also like we're older now. We all have different lives now. It's just so hard to get everybody on the right schedule. And
We're in Italy.
you're in Italy, you're on the moon.
Upstate.
but yeah, it's just
Text you Monday.
It's really just a matter of time. Nobody has the time anymore.
Oh yeah, it was same for us. You have kids, you have
Right.
work, and then everybody else is busy, and it's like, all right, well, I'm free Saturday. Well, I'm not free till 2 Saturdays from now. And all right,
Right,
and then the
yeah.
third person's not free till 3 Saturdays from now. So okay, well, we'll do this again 4 years from now, because that's when everyone's
exactly.
schedule lines up again.
Yeah.
But yeah, those were the glory days when we could actually do that like regularly and
Yep.
go to the tours and the presentations, and it was great.
Yeah. That's actually one of the reasons why I stopped doing it. The group continued without me for a while,
Mhm.
but I was pregnant in 2009, and I had this overwhelming fear that I was going to have something attached to me and
And give
haunt
birth to
my
it?
child,
Like a
and
devil baby.
I'd give birth to like a demonic, I mean, I wasn't that, my thoughts weren't that intense, but
Rosemary's
I was
Baby.
I was just a little bit afraid of that. I was like, God forbid, like I bring home something evil, And again, it's not that I necessarily believe that can happen, but I was like, do I want to test it? Not really.
That sounds like a great movie idea.
So that was one of the reasons why I stopped. One of the last investigations that I did was a residential location, and it was an elderly woman. Obviously, we can't say too much, but it was an elderly woman, and she had something
Behind the counter in a small town.
Yeah.
Little PJ reference there for you.
Good one. No, but she had something going on. I mean, it could have just been a mental thing. I don't know, but it was a little spooky.
Mhm.
And that was the day I realized, like, if this is something truly negative, I was probably halfway through my pregnancy at that point. I was like, yeah, maybe I should try to stop doing this now. And I hadn't done it since. So.
And again, it's just a dangerous thing to begin with. I mean, you're in old abandoned buildings. There's
Right.
dust. There's nails. There's
Exactly.
condemned buildings that
Yeah.
certain
Well, I
people
wouldn't do that
wander through
pregnant.
when they're not supposed to go through. Yeah, but I don't blame you at that point for just being like, regardless of whether the paranormal is real or not, like,
Right.
I have a baby in the belly, so maybe I should
cool
it for a bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So.
All right. So is that all the Snug Harbor stories?
I think so.
Okay.
Again, there were
Unless you
little
remind me of anything.
things here and there. Like I know I snapped a kooky looking picture once that, and you and I have spoken about this too. Pictures have reflections and there's
Mhm.
lights outside. So it could have been anything, but we used to show it, but we had a disclaimer. We're
Right.
not saying it's a ghost, and all that, but we used to let people look at it. That was probably that I might be able to get for you if you want to show
Okay.
that.
Sure.
I'll see. But again, my sister probably has all the archives.
All right, cool.
But, again, it was probably just reflections, but who knows? But that's really it.
Okay.
Nothing spectacular.
All right. So, Laurie, do you have more stories for us that are not
do,
ghost
I
hunting
do.
related? Cool.
I was gonna say I think I was 18. I was living
Mhm.
with my parents. No, I was a little bit older. Give me a second. I want to make it official. Probably I was 20. I was living with my parents, and every once in a while I would fall asleep with my door open. When I would wake up during the night, and I always woke up during the night when my door was open, and there would be a figure. Couldn't see a face, all I could see was a dark outline.
Mhm.
I knew it was a man. I knew it was old. I knew he was tall, and I knew he was wearing a hat. And in my mind, I envisioned him to look like that scary guy from Poltergeist Part 2. But it wasn't like a one-time visit. It was a constant. Anytime my door was accidentally left open, or my parents, maybe at night, they opened it a little bit, and then I had cats. The cats would open it all the way. He was always there. And it got to the point where it started to bother me a little bit. And my aunt offered for me to go see a medium, to find out about my grandparents and stuff like that. And while we were sitting there, I said to her, I have a visitor. And she's like, what do you mean? And I was like, there's a man every night. And she's like, is he real? I'm like, no, it's a tall figure. And she said, sometimes spirits, they get lost, and you have such a bright light about you, and he just must be coming to stand and look at your light. But I didn't want him there. So she told me, just tell him to go away. And that's what I eventually did. And that's when I learned the thing with the TV. I said, I'm just going to tell him to go away. And it worked. But yeah, my visitor stopped visiting me once it happened. But that was definitely at least once a week type thing for a couple of years. It wasn't a once in a while thing. It was very often that he would come visit me.
No, did it like wake you up, or was it like when you were trying to fall asleep? Like when would you see him?
I was woken up.
Oh, okay. So you'd wake up and
it was always like 2, 3 in the morning, whenever the house was quiet.
and you just wake up and see this man
I would
standing
just wake
there.
up and he was there.
So have you heard of the Hat Man?
No, I didn't until I think Kristi brought it up to me. She's like, remember that figure you had? Did he have a hat? I'm like, yes, he had a hat.
Yeah, and it's just this, and I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a ghost. I don't know if it's just a psychological phenomenon, but so many people around the world have seen this figure like in black with like a wide brimmed hat. And it's funny, I had no idea about this. I was watching, this is like 5 or 6 years ago. I was watching a documentary with my son. It was called The Hat Man. I'm like, oh, what is this about? And like over the course of the documentary, they start showing people's drawings of this thing. And I'm like, as I'm watching it, my heart sank because I'm like, I drew something like that in high school because I had seen it.
Wow.
And I had no idea of this. I just drew it one day. And, it's this guy with like teeth and he's got a hat. And I'll try to put it in the episode here if I can find it.
Yeah.
But I drew this like, maybe not, maybe like either like late high school, early college. I forget what year it was, maybe like 92 or 93. But like before there was really like an internet to go search for these things. And before it was like this, I mean, now you go on Google or whatever, there's probably Facebook groups to the Hat Man, there's movies about the Hat Man, but back then there was nothing talking about it. But
No.
like I saw that and like my heart sank and I ran up to my attic. I pulled out like all my old books and stuff from high school. And I'm like, and I'm showing my son and, of course,
I have to watch that.
yeah, it's a cool documentary. It's freaky, but it's just like people from all over the world will draw this figure and they say they see it at night. Like you said, it like comes to visit them. They'll wake up and like there's this man in a hat standing at their doorway.
Yeah,
and
I never saw a face, but I saw his outline.
Yeah, you know what it was like. I never saw a face either. I drew a face on it, but it was more just like the impression of a face, like what I am like.
What you saw, yeah.
Like almost in my mind's eye, like what I, just I don't know, but it's just weird that all these people who see it, it's never like, oh, a woman in a dress or a man with, buffalo horns or like whatever, or a baseball cap. It's always like this wide brimmed hat. It's always the same figure.
I just remembered another story when you're done. So I don't want to interrupt.
No, you can go.
This was a good one too.
Guy with buffalo?
No, but something that you just said like triggered a memory in my head. And actually, I have it typed out in my phone because I was going to send it in to another show that I listened to a long time ago, and I never did. That was before Odd and Untold.
He's like,
Kristi.
I'm not going to waste my time with that.
But how crazy! Like, I guess I blocked it out because it was honestly disturbing. But I want you to finish because you have some good ones. But this was a good one.
Well, do you want to go now as we're talking about Hat Man, or is it not related to Hat Man?
You want to know what triggered it though? You said something about how it came at night and this and that, and that's when I realized I had a nighttime. Again, we don't like to use the word paranormal unless we know, but it was completely unexplainable. I really should have looked at my notes, but I forgot it even happened. But I do have it typed out. But this was the gist of it. This is when I was still married.
Mm-hmm.
And so my husband and I were laying down in bed. It had to be a Saturday night because he was home. And my daughter, we would keep our door closed, and my daughter, like most children, when they wake you up, they're like this.
Right.
And you're like, mom, and they're right there, So I just remember waking up and my daughter was right in front of me. But now this is going to sound totally explainable, but it truly wasn't because we debunked as best as we could. But she was standing so close to me. And when I looked at her, this sounds horrible. She literally looked dead. She looked like a corpse. And I remember thinking to myself in like an eighth of a second, don't scream, don't react because you'll scare the crap out of her. And I mean, she had to be like 8, 9 years old, she was young. So I see her face and I just said, hey babe, what's going on? And I remember her voice was normal, but I even like blinked, like, am I seeing what I'm seeing? 100%. She literally looked like it was scaly, and it wasn't like a tree branch shadow. It was not a shadow because it didn't move when she, you know what I'm saying? Like you could tell it wasn't a shadow. It was on her skin. Mm-hmm. And I said, what's the matter, babe? And then she started to talk and she said, I had a bad dream. And I said, okay. And again, now I sit up and she still looks like she's a corpse. Like I almost felt like if I touched her face, you could feel the veininess and the pockiness and all that, but I didn't touch her. But I sat up, and then he woke up. My husband woke up, and he said the same thing. What's the matter, babe? And he looked over and he said, oh, what happened? She said, I had a bad dream. And then within seconds, boom, it was gone. And she was my daughter again. I mean, it's not like we flipped the light on. Nothing in the room changed. We didn't open the blinds. Nothing else happened. And, I ended up getting up. I put her back to bed, walked her back into her room, said goodnight, went back into bed. Now I am wide awake because I know what I saw. And so my husband rolled over to me and he goes, this is going to sound weird. He's like, did she look a little different to you? And I looked at him and I said, what do you mean? And he's like, she almost looked like a zombie, like kind of like veiny. And I went, what? Now, he does not believe in anything paranormal, anything odd or untold, any of that stuff. But I jumped up. I was like, what are you talking about? So he validated what I saw, and I didn't even indicate at all that there was anything wrong when it happened. But I didn't tell her about it because I was like, she's going to freak the hell out if I tell her that she looked dead. But yeah, and it went on for enough time where, again, it wasn't a shadow, whatever. So after we validated our, what we both saw, then I tried to debunk it. So like now I'm moving the blinds. I'm like, it's not windy out. There was no storm. I could not figure out what the heck could have caused it. I still don't know. All these years later, I have no idea what it was. All I know is that he saw the same thing that I did, and it stopped at the same time. So that somehow your stories triggered that in my head, but I don't know. I don't even like thinking about it because it was so scary to me.
Creepy.
Yeah, very creepy.
Yeah, and that kind of rules out like a waking dream. Like if you woke up and you were like mid-dream, and
right,
because people will have that, like it's almost like the reverse of sleepwalking, where you'll wake up and you're awake, but you're still kind of you're hallucinating. Basically, your brain is still dreaming and it hasn't quite stopped. So you're going to see things or hear things that aren't really there. But if he saw it too, then it's not a waking dream. I mean, what are the odds of both of you having the same waking dream at the same time?
Yeah.
Regarding your daughter.
Yeah.
And not just
absolutely terrifying. No.
Yeah, that's weird. And it almost sounds like a horror movie trope. Like you see that a lot, like in horror movies, where like someone wakes up and like they see somebody in the room and it's like they got the maggots and then they blink and it's gone and you're like, oh, like it's just like a
that's exactly what it
that's
sounds
what
like.
I expected. But again, I kind of blinked. I remember touching my eyes, like I have to be seeing something because I just woke up. Sometimes that happens. You're groggy, like you said.
Right.
This went on far too long for it to have been that.
And again, that he witnessed it too.
It was just unexplainable.
Yes, very strange.
And I apologize for cutting you off.
No, that was good. That was a good story. I had something similar happen with my daughter and I. I'm a widow, single mom. Well, not single anymore, but I was a single mom for a long time. And when my daughter was 3 or 4, she was sleeping in the bed with me. And it's funny, she still remembers this to this day. Now she's 13. And we were just laying in bed, getting ready to go to sleep. I don't even think the TV was on. And I heard her say, Mommy. And I was like, yeah. She turned white as anything. And she turned to me, she goes, that wasn't me.
Oof.
I remember this actually.
So at least it wasn't just me who heard it, and it's just the two of us who lived in the house. So it's not like it could have been this or that. And this is before Alexa or anything.
Right.
It was
sorry. There goes
sorry. But it wasn't her. But again, to see my daughter's look.
Yeah.
And she and I had one other connection once. I had this, I guess a psychic told me it was a vision. I had a dream about my husband, my first husband, and I dreamt that he was laying in a tomb. So I remember walking into the tomb and someone telling me, sometimes people feel comfort when they lay next to the person who passed. And at the time, my daughter was 3 or 4. I can almost look it up because we were on our way to well, that's the second part of the story. I won't even get into that. She was like 3 or 4 at the time. But so I laid down next to my husband in the tomb. I'm sorry, I messed that all up.
That's okay.
Should I start over?
No, go ahead. Start over.
Okay. Okay, so I had a dream, and I walked into a tomb to see my husband, and a gentleman standing there told me, sometimes people feel comfort to lay down next to their loved one. And in your dream, you do whatever they tell you to do. So I lay down in the tomb. All of a sudden, I was in my bedroom. Now, my bedroom is not the bedroom my husband and I shared. It's a new house. It's a new headboard. But I was laying in my new house bedroom. And I turned to my husband and I said to him, "You did it." And he's like, "Shh." And I'm like, "No, you did it. You came to me." Because I'll go back to, I asked him when he was dying to come visit me. I said, my father-in-law will always remind me of this. He's like, "It was so beautiful when you whispered in your husband's ear, we'll make love in the clouds. We'll still date in our dreams." And I guess it made me feel good to say that to him when he was passing. So in this dream, I said, "You did it." I was like, "Well, here." And he put his finger on my mouth. And then my daughter was between us. And the three of us were just laying there, enjoying each other's time. And then he leaned over and he bit my head. And I was like, and I immediately woke up. And I remembered it very clearly because he bit my head. The next day, my daughter and I were on our way to go see the Lorax. We were on our way to see the Lorax. Again, that's what I'm saying. She could be 2 or 3 because I think that's when that came out. We're driving, and out of nowhere, my daughter starts singing. Now, my daughter was 6 months old when her father passed away. So it wasn't that she was, 3 and he passed away. She was 6 months old.
Wow.
Out of nowhere, she starts singing, "My daddy loves me. My daddy loves me." And I said, "No, he loves me too." She said, "No, he told me he loves me. And then he bit me." I said, "What?" "Yeah, he told me he loves me. Then he bit you on the head, and then he bit me on the hand."
Wow.
If I wasn't driving, I probably would have fainted. I'm
Wow.
getting chills now. Even
I wonder
retelling this
why,
story.
like, why a bite? Why not a kiss?
I think because it's something, I always thought it was because it's something I'll remember. If he kissed
Maybe.
me, I don't think it would stick in my head. Like
Right.
the fact that he bit me.
But it wasn't like a malicious bite.
It wasn't, it was a playful bite.
Right.
And again, for her to say, "Daddy bit you on the head and then he bit me on the hand."
Right.
Like I woke up already from that part of the dream, because the second he bit my head, I woke up. And then for her to say he bit her hand, that's just, she saw my head get bit.
Right.
And she wasn't even sleeping in my bed. I didn't wake up and tell the story in front of her. Like, this was the next day. She was sleeping in her own room. She didn't always sleep in my bed at the time. It was every, like, a once in a while, like a treat. But yeah, no, really freaked me out. And I told the psychic about it, and they were like, "Oh no, like no big deal." She's like, "Oh, that was a vision." He goes, "That wasn't a dream. Your husband came to you." So
And it's very interesting because, again, like if your daughter came and said, "Oh, like daddy kissed you and then he kissed me," like that's something you can kind of chalk up to, that's what a kid is going to imagine.
Yeah.
Daddy loves me, so he's going to kiss me. He's going to kiss mommy. The bite is interesting because it's just different enough where you're going to pay attention to that.
Yeah.
Because if she said, "Oh, daddy came to me in a dream and he kissed me," you can like, "Oh, she had a dream and it's not related to my dream." But how did she know what you dreamed of? And that's a very specific thing. Again, a kiss is normal and expected and just common. I mean, that's going to be a common dream. Daddy kissed you, but like daddy bit you in the, and not that he just bit you, but that he bit you in the head and then he bit me on the hand. It's like different enough to like you said, you're driving and you're like, "Oh shit." Like, this is not just a kid dreaming about her dad or, being loving.
She was
Like, this is
6 months old when her father died.
Right. So it's not like a memory.
Yeah, it wasn't that she was 3 or 4,
right.
but I always knew he came to her. Things happened almost immediately after he passed. I remember like leaving the funeral home. I was torn up and hysterical crying, and I remember thinking to myself, like, "How am I going to do this? How am I going to do this?" And all of a sudden I had like a calm come over me, and I felt his hands on my leg. And I remember even looking down because I really, really felt it. Like I knew he was there. He was with me. It calmed me down, and I listen, could it have just been in my mind? Yeah, it could have, but it was so vivid and it was, so clear. But he constantly would come visit me. Um, I always said he was big with the electronics.
Hmm.
When she was still a baby and we were still living in our first house, and he passed away in our house. He had cancer, so he passed away in our home. But I remember one day I was laying down and it was early in the morning, and I'm looking at the monitor, and all of a sudden it started like getting
Glitching.
weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, glitching. And I saw her, and then it came off, then it came on, and I heard him say, "Hun." And I was like, okay.
But you didn't see him.
I didn't see him. I heard him.
Yeah.
Clear as anything. See, hon. Now listen, someone would say, "Oh, well, it could have picked up someone
Yeah,
else's
'cause he
signal,"
was
and it
hearing
could have.
Yeah.
But I know in my heart, like that was him, because that wasn't his first time.
Hmm.
Another time he came in and I was in my bedroom, and my TV, he likes the TVs, or something likes the TVs, started going on and off and on and off, crazy. And I said, "John, cut it out. You're scaring me." And the TV went off, and it didn't turn back on. I mean, if I turned it on, it would have turned back
Right,
on.
right,
But
right. But not by itself.
no, again, really, really odd things. Even once I was at someone's house and I was saying, yeah, my husband comes to me a lot. I was at my aunt and uncle's house, and I was like, "Oh, my husband comes to me a lot." And they're like, "What do you mean he comes to you?" And I said, "Well, if I'm talking about him, lights will go on and off. He always lets me know when he is around, especially when it's around his birthday." And my uncle said, "When's his birthday?" I was like, "Oh, it's like in a couple of days."
Just so you know, yesterday was his 50th
Yesterday
birthday.
was his 50th birthday.
So,
Wow.
But
happy birthday, John.
but just as I said it, the kitchen light went off and turned back on, and I turned to my uncle. I'm like, I was like, "That's funny," and he goes, "I didn't do that." So
Wow.
he always came through electric. I mean, my mother-in-law would say, whenever, like, she'll pray to him and she'll say, "Send me a sign today," and then she'll hear songs on the radio that are his songs, like
Hmm.
Johnny Angel. Like, when does Johnny Angel, like, yeah, I imagine she listens to like
The old
60s or 70s, but that wasn't a big, song back then. And even like my wedding song, sometimes when I'm feeling down and out, Seal, "A Kiss from a Rose." Like,
Hmm.
what's the chances that's coming on the radio? So sometimes I feel like he has ways of coming to me. He's got, signs to come to me,
Hmm.
not, but once, once I got married, I really feel that he, released a little bit. So
Remarried, she means.
yeah,
She
I'm
got
sorry.
remarried.
Once I got remarried, I feel that, he stepped away. And it's funny, I almost know exactly when he kind of stepped back a little bit. Um, I'm a widow. My
Hmm.
husband's a widower. And we went on our second vacation as a family, and we went to go visit my husband's mother-in-law. So his wife's mother.
Okay.
So we're standing on the back balcony and we're looking at the ocean. She lives in Myrtle Beach, and it was just so beautiful. And all of a sudden, a male cardinal flew up. Then a female cardinal flew up. And then they flew away together.
Mm.
And I was like, "That's them." And even my husband was like, "Wow." Like, that was their way of telling us it's okay.
Yeah.
And we weren't married then. We were still, just dating. But, I feel like she saw that I was, good to her husband. I was good to her daughter, and I was good to her mother. So,
Yeah. And
maybe.
for anyone listening who doesn't know, and I'm aware of this, but a lot of people will say cardinals are a sign of a past loved one. Like if you see a cardinal, and again, I don't know how much stock I put into that,
Yeah.
but you do hear these stories, and or butterflies. I mean, and
Rainbows,
pennies, and
right. But you have these things where it's like, all right, I've gone my whole life and a butterfly has never landed on me, but then like 2 days after my grandmother dies, like a butterfly lands on my head.
Yeah.
Like maybe coincidence, but
Right.
or again, the same thing. Like, how many cardinals do you see? They're
And to
I mean, they're
have
out there, but
two,
Right. So to find two, and a male and a female, like, again, like again, I'm not saying it's definitely that, but it's a weird coincidence that it's not just one cardinal, it was two, and it was not two males or two females, it was one of each, and you're there with your new husband. And yeah, it's almost like this sign of like them giving you their blessings, like, yes, go be happy, go on with your lives. And that's beautiful. Yeah, that's
I did have one other weird visitor, I guess you
okay.
would call her. And I've seen her often, and I probably wrote down somewhere. I have to find out exactly where I put it, but I have a little girl who comes and visits me. Got to be probably
In this house?
in this house, 3 or 4. She came a lot when my daughter was 3 or 4. Then that's where we in my head I thought that voice was the mommy.
And I want to go back to that, because that is freaky. Like, I'm sorry, but like, before we go on, but like, it's really interesting that your daughter, it wasn't just like she was like, "What, mommy?" Like she didn't hear anything. She was just like, "That wasn't me." Like, she heard it too. Like, that's just, I just want to draw attention to that is a very creepy thing. That again, for me, anytime someone else witnesses something or hears something or like joins in that with you, like, it's so much harder for someone to be like, "Oh, it's just your mind playing tricks on you," or you misheard something, or you were dreaming. You don't share dreams. You don't share auditory hallucinations. Like, if you both heard someone say "mommy," that's something said it, because now you're both hearing it. You have like independent verification that something was said. Again, I'm not saying it was a ghost. I'm not saying it's paranormal, but it's unexplained. It's
definitely
where did that voice come from? So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I did want to just address that and bring that to the attention of everyone listening.
But this was around the mommy time that at first, this little girl, blonde hair, I would see her in the hallway, and one of the things, I would see her, I would turn away because I was putting my daughter to bed, so I would turn away for a second, and then in my head I'm going, did I really see that? Look back, and she was gone. But this happened a lot, especially again when my daughter was 2 or 3, maybe even up to 4. She was constantly in my house. Then she would go away for a little while, and then I would, tell Amy, and then she would come back again. And even once, it was to the point that, I woke up, I heard my daughter come in my room. I woke up, I turned to say, "Hey, Danielle." I turned and I looked, and it wasn't Danielle. And I jumped up, and it was gone by the time I looked back.
Wow.
So, back when I was in college, I had a miscarriage, and my boyfriend at the time was this platinum blonde guy. And, I always feel like maybe it was a girl, and maybe, that's her way of just coming to check in on me. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, but it does make you wonder.
Yes, I do see, but it's always a girl. She's always blonde, and I see her a lot. It's been a little while now, but at the time,
I mean, anything is possible. Like, my first thought was, if it was a miscarriage, then how do you know what the child would have looked like? But it could be a manifestation of what you would think that child would look like. You know what I'm saying? Not that it was like in your head, but maybe that energy manifested as your vision. Who knows?
Like, I did have 1 or 2 psychics in my life tell me, you carry a little girl with you. And I'm like, yeah, she sits right here. Like, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, and again, it's when these things happen repeatedly, again, they're harder to dismiss. You see something once, it's very easy to be like, I was tired, I was hallucinating, trick of the eye, brain's playing tricks on me, misidentification of something else. But when you see it over and over again, it really makes you wonder. And again, like Kristi said earlier, like, I'm the same way. Like, I don't like calling things paranormal or ghosts or definitely anything, because we don't know.
Right.
It's just odd. It's just, strange. It's spooky. Like, we don't know what it is. And maybe one day we'll have an explanation for all of this, but just very strange. And yeah, I mean, that story about your daughter, that freaked me out when she was like, that wasn't me. Like, that just hit me. Because when kids see that stuff, that always freaks me out. You get like a 3-year-old who's like, oh yeah, the man who comes to me every night. And it's like, nope, we're selling the house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
not dealing with that. Like, who is this man coming? You know, because 3-year-olds. I mean, and again, I understand there's like uh, imaginary friends and things like that, but it's, and even if it's just an imaginary friend, like your 3-year-old comes to you and says, "There's a man coming to me."
Right.
That's
Yeah.
like, why is that your imaginary friend? It's not like another 3-year-old. It's not
Right.
That's
another
yeah.
kid. It's not another little
That
girl.
was
It's like, oh, it's an old man, and it's like, that is weird to me.
Yeah. My sister's daughter, who's now 23,
Mm-hmm.
she used to see what we called the man all the time. And they lived in an apartment, but that was at second or third floor. They were on the second floor. So, but my point is, it was not ground level. And their backyard was like a shared long driveway. So
Mhm.
there'd be no reason for anybody to be back there unless you parked your car there and you lived there. And the only time I was involved with anything like that, I was babysitting for her. And I'm going to say she couldn't have been any more than around 3. And we were rolling a ball on the floor, like sitting like, crisscross applesauce, whatever, and rolling the ball. And the window to that back lot was behind me.
Mhm.
So my niece Jessica rolled the ball, and all of a sudden, now I'm going to do it to the camera. We're looking at one another, and then she goes, and she looks away, like over me. And I was like, what are you looking at? And there was nobody there. I was babysitting.
Yeah.
And she said, the man. And I was like, what? So I ended up, of course, I look out the window. There's nothing there. I mean, unless somebody was levitating, there was no way
Yeah, it
you
was
could
too
be.
high.
There was no, yeah, there wasn't
Yeah, it
even a
was too
fire
high.
escape. There was nothing over there. Probably not legal, but whatever. So I ended up calling my dad, who lived, 10 minutes away. I was like, you have to come here because now I'm freaking out. But yeah, that is the only time that I experienced anything with her. But my sister would tell us this was constant.
Yeah,
They
she would
be,
wake up.
Yeah, she'd wake up. And the window to that
Looking
back
over the
lot,
bed,
yeah,
like-
wasn't even in that bedroom. It was through
Yeah.
their kitchen. But she would see something all the time. It was always the man. I see the
Mhm.
man. I see the man. And to the point where my brother-in-law was like, all right, I have to go out that in the lot and see what she's looking at. He went outside. He's looking everywhere, looking in the bushes, there's nobody there. And there's no way that she could have seen like a neighbor over the fences or anything. I mean, they were high up. There's no way she saw a man, but she saw something, and it was usually out that window. But occasionally, like Laurie said, she'd wake up and she would talk about the man.
Yeah,
So I don't know if he was in the
I remember her
house.
looking like, I think Amy said she was looking like over the bed, like they
Yeah,
were
I
laying
don't
down. She was looking over the bed at the man.
Yeah, I never had any experience seeing the man there, but I don't know. I didn't see
Yeah, and
much
it's just,
normally.
I'm probably going to butcher this story, but I had a cousin, and my parents had told me this, and he was a baby before I was even born. He's a couple years older than me, but I guess there was one day they're kind of hanging out, and my mother and his mother, and he comes walking out like into the kitchen, and he was crib sort of what's the word, like he was crib bound at the time, like he couldn't get out of the crib by himself, but he just comes walking in one day, and they're like, how did you get out here? And he's like, the man helped me.
Oh my God.
Wow.
And it's just like, oh, okay, time
That
to go.
is scary.
And again, I'm not sure if I'm getting all the details right, but that was
Right.
the general gist of it was just
Yeah.
like, he was out of his crib. He should not have been able to get out of his crib.
No.
And
No.
they asked him, like, how did you get out of your crib? He's like, oh, the man.
That's funny. That's scary.
Yeah, very scary. And it just, again, maybe he was hallucinating. Maybe it's an imaginary friend. I don't
Somehow
know.
he got out though.
Somehow he got out, and he's saying the man helped him. How'd you get out of the crib? Oh, the man.
Yikes. Wow.
And again, running through the apartment and making sure there's no, but it was like a second floor apartment. It's not like somebody could
Mhm.
just get in and they're gonna break in to take a kid out of the crib and then
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
And then just
Weird.
leave.
Yeah, just the savior to toddlers.
I think the moral of the story today is don't have children. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Kids are weird.
Kids are weird.
Kids are
and they
scary.
they see weird shit and they talk about weird shit, and that's the scariest part when a 3, 4, or 5-year-old says stuff. That's because they don't really lie at that age.
Right.
It's not a 16-year-old being like, yeah, I didn't go to school today because the man made me not. It's like, yeah, all right, you just wanted to stay home, but like,
Sounds like they're trying to.
Yeah, but I also always thought that one of the reasons why children that age are more susceptible is because it's not like they're watching scary movies or reading scary books or TV shows. Like, they don't have any other influence to put that in their head. So if they're telling you that they're seeing something like the man or whatever, I'd be more likely to believe that. And if it was one time, okay, you're using your imagination. But if this is something constant, where else are they getting it from? You know, like I said, it's not like they're watching scary movies and whatever else. So
Yeah, and I mean,
more
again,
likely to
psychology
believe.
says like, oh, these are just kids who are lonely and they're making up an
Oh,
imaginary
yeah.
friend. And again, I get that. Like,
Yeah.
you know, someone's like, oh, my little friend Susie, and she comes and
Right.
visits me, and
Mhm.
oh, yeah, she's my age and she's got the same color hair as me, and it's like, oh, okay, that's your imaginary friend.
Yeah.
When the little kid is saying, yeah, the 70-year-old man is coming to visit me, and
Right.
he, you know,
Like
and
why?
what is he
Yeah.
dressed in? And he's dressed like an undertaker, or he's
Right.
dressed like,
Yes.
you
Yeah.
know,
He took me out
old-timey
of my crib.
clothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you're like, where did you get this from? Like, this is
Right.
not, you're not getting this from like SpongeBob or
Right.
Umizoomi or, you know, like any of the shows you're watching, you know, Bubble Guppies. Like, where did you get this image from that you're
Yeah.
3 years old and you're seeing this like old time, you know, they're describing like someone from the 1800s. And it's just
Yeah.
very weird. Again, I'm not saying it's definitely paranormal, but it's one of those things that just makes you wonder.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
any other stories, gals?
I don't think I have any more.
I know. I think I probably have more. I just can't think of them right now.
Yeah, you
All
probably.
right. Well, these were really good. And yeah, I mean, I think the story about your husband is great. Like that's just like heartwarming and in its way. You know, it's I don't think it's spooky, but it makes you kind
I
of feel
definitely
good
think
about
it's
things.
to me, I always feel like, I always look for signs to know that there's something after.
Right.
And I feel like that stuff is telling me, there's something, there's
Right.
no, the light just doesn't go out. There's something, they're there, they
And
want
again,
the
if
best for us.
yeah, and if it was just your dream, it's easier to kind of dismiss that as just you want to see him or it's just your dream. It's just your brain kind of helping you through the grief. But the fact that
Mhm.
your daughter had like the same dream
Mhm.
and knew about it, and she's very young at the time and she has no
Yeah.
memories of her father because she was young when he passed, like all of that together again doesn't prove that it's paranormal, but it just makes you really wonder.
Yep.
So yeah, so very cool. Thank you guys so much for this was awesome. This is a great Halloween
No problem.
episode and you guys are so much
Yeah.
fun. Like we had a lot of fun. Like I had so much fun recording this. We have to do it again if you guys want to come on for whatever reason. I don't know, just
We have to start ghost hunting so we can have more stories.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, we have to.
We form like a giant, like mega group.
Yes, nips sips and
Yeah.
nip sips or we come up with funny names for our groups.
Yeah.
I remember, and you know, may he rest in peace, poor Artie, who started our first group of Epic. But I remember when he found out you guys existed, he was so mad because he
I
wanted
know.
that name. He wanted the Staten Island because we were based
I
in Staten
remember
Island. He
fighting with
wanted.
him online
Yeah.
on AOL.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
will.
He was a character, and again, may
Okay.
he rest in peace. And
Yeah.
you know, he passed sadly years ago, but he was a character, and he would just obsess over it. And he's like, I can't believe they have that. And it's like, dude, like move on. Like they got the name. Like they've been around longer than we have. Like he's like, yeah, but I really wanted Staten Island in the name, and I can't come up with anything else. And I was like, dude, just let it go. Like, but it was he always just had this like very sort of combative attitude, and we just like
Yeah.
wanted to hang out with other people. I'm like, it's cool. Like they're
Yeah.
um, and yeah, there was one time like Brian and I were talking because they were in Scared at the time and they wanted to collaborate. And I remember Artie was just like, no, I don't want them touching my equipment and like they're gonna break it. And I'm like, dude, they've been doing this longer than we
Yeah,
have. Like,
seriously.
and it's a plastic little EMF detector. Like
Right.
you could drop it from the third story of a house and it'd be fine. Like
Like a Nokia phone.
yeah. And I'm like, what are they gonna do to it? And he's, oh, they might steal it. And it was just
Yeah.
funny times. But he was just like so territorial and I feel like we had like we missed like a lot of time interacting because he just didn't want us to. And then when he found out I was talking to Brian, he got real angry.
Oh yeah.
Ooh, he got
Well, that's competition, so
yeah, but I was like, dude, like we're all on the island, we all have fun together, we all respect each other. Like, why can't we join up and like have fun?
I love
Yeah.
doing that. I always loved when your group would come, when Scared would come. I loved doing collaborations with everybody. I thought that was fun and
Yeah,
just
we
I enjoyed it more.
and like once we split from him, that's what we started doing, and we just had a great time. And I remember he was at one of the Snug Harbor things with his like new group, and he didn't really interact with us, and we were all having fun. And I remember like we'd go out to the diner afterwards, and
Yeah, we did
and
that a
he
lot
would just
too.
go home. Like it was
Yeah.
just, but like we'd all hang out and talk. And
Mhm.
I had many conversations on the phone with Brian, and you know, Chris is a great guy. Like we always just talk to him and on Facebook, and like I was like, look at all the time we missed and like all the fun we could have had like doing this. And
Yeah.
anyway, we're just reminiscing now.
You have
So
to go back to it. Remember we did the Lizzie Borden house?
Oh yeah.
I love that. We have to go do like a haunted bed and breakfast again.
I was just gonna
Reason
say,
to get out.
yeah, I was gonna say one funny thing about,
okay.
and you're probably gonna edit this out anyway, but when we first met each
Mhm.
other's groups, I thought for sure, I told you this, that you hated us.
Oh
because
yeah.
you were quiet because you're shy. And I thought for sure, I was like, I think he's nice, but he doesn't like us. Like he won't talk to us.
No, I was just shy and quiet, and there
I
was
know.
no
No,
beer
you
served at
eventually
most of
did
these
talk
things.
to us, but
I get through one or two of these, and I'm a little more open and
yeah, but we can't drink
friendly.
on the
Can't drink on.
investigation.
So
So.
yeah. No, and it really wasn't that at all. It was
I
just,
know.
you know, like, and again, he was just very like, he just instilled this like, and again, we shouldn't have listened to him, but he was
Right,
just
but-
like a little, you know, dictator, I guess, but
A little bit, yeah.
a little bit, but you
Napoleon.
know, it was a shame because then like once we all got to know each other, it was like, oh man, like we have a lot of fun together. So
Yeah.
yeah. So, and again, this is no different. This was a lot of fun tonight. So thank you both. This was awesome.
Thank you.
And
Definitely.
Laurie, I'll text you Monday and find out where in the universe you are.
I think I'm going to Greece.
Okay, cool.
No, I have no trips planned.
They're good.
All right, good. We need you here on Earth. All right. So thank you both again. This was awesome.
Thank
Happy
you.
Halloween to you
Yes,
both.
Happy Halloween,
Happy
everybody.
And Kristi, I'm sure I'll be talking to you in like 30 seconds. So
Yes. Oh, and can we show our shirts?
oh yes, please do.
Okay, I'll show Laurie's first.
Okay.
What does that
See
say?
ya.
Broom hair, don't care. Awesome.
What does it say?
Broom hair,
Broom hair, don't
don't
care.
care.
And then mine, I don't know if you could see, future ghost.
Future ghost. Okay, so we got
Because
some.
aren't we all?
Yes, we are.
I'm definitely haunting the shit out of people.
Yeah. So
I have a list.
anyone listening on audio only, some really cool t-shirts here the girls just showed along with their boobs. Well, not covered boobs, but
I didn't know I would have worn V-neck. Sorry.
Who doesn't like boobs?
gay guys. I don't know.
They love them too. Stop
They
it.
do. That's true. Yeah. So everybody loves boobs. So
Yeah.
Everyone.
Boobs are good.
yes, they
I
are.
need a shirt that says like boobs. Like Halloween.
Boobs. Yes, that's a cool shirt. All right, ladies. Thank you so much. This was awesome. I had such a good time.
Thank you for
Thank you.
having us.
Oh, anytime. And if you guys think of more stories and you want to come on again, let me know.
Okay.
No
Yeah.
problem.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Happy Halloween.
You
Happy
too.
Halloween.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, I want to thank Kristi and Laurie. My good friend Kristi, I've known her for years and been trying to get her on the show for the past year. And I mention her a lot and we talk a lot. So she's great. And Laurie, new friend, but some really cool stories, really creepy stories. I love the story about her daughter hearing that voice say mommy. That just kind of gave me some chills. So very cool. And very happy they came on. We had a lot of fun. This was a really fun one to do, as most episodes are. But glad to finally have them on, and for Halloween means a lot to me. So Kristi, Laurie, thank you so much for coming on. I know we were all nervous beforehand. This is why I'm always with a beer. And this is a Kismet. This is called Heterochromia. It's a German style Pilsner. So Kismet Brewing, thank you so much. And happy Halloween, everybody. Stay safe out there. Go trick-or-treating, get your candy. Until next week, everybody, stay spooky. Happy Halloween. Rock and roll.